President Trump is still defending his Iran bombing campaign after a leaked initial assessment by U.S. intelligence suggested key parts of Tehran's nuclear program were largely left unscathed. Trump is insisting the Iranian program has been set back by decades by the U.S. military strikes instead of by just a few months.
It was very, very successful. It was called obliteration. It was so devastating, actually. If you look at Hiroshima, if you look at Nagasaki, that ended a war too. This ended a war in a different way. We destroyed the nuclear. In other words, it's destroyed. I said, Iran will not have nuclear. Well, we blew it up. It's blown up to kingdom come.
Joining us now, Iranian-American writer and MSNBC contributor Houman Majd and senior fellow of Middle East and Africa Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations, Stephen Cook. Stephen, let's get into this disconnect here, this idea that the intelligence doesn't say what it says. Why are we seeing this contradiction? I mean, the intelligence says what it says. We've seen reporting that's seen the report, and yet this administration is refusing to tangle with that.
Yeah, I think there's two things that were going on here. One is the DIA leak essentially focused on something very, very narrow, which was an assessment on how quickly would the Iranians be able to develop a nuclear weapon as a result of the bombing, which said that it was actually pretty quick. And the president obviously came out on Saturday night and said, no, it's been totally obliterated. And to me, it's right out of the kind of Trump bombast playbook that he learned at the feet of Roy Cohn, which is say what you want to say, what the narrative that you want it to be, and it'll eventually become everybody else's narrative. The problem here is this is not an election, it's physics. And so if there are still centrifuges there, if there's still enriched uranium that are there, they're still there. And he could say obliterated all he wants, but if the Iranians can quickly reconstitute their program, which admittedly is an open question, then obliterated is clearly not the right term.
There is a ceasefire. It is, ongoing. I know you say you're bullish on it, Stephen, but Houman, I'm curious, have you heard anything from inside of Iran, from individuals about how they're feeling after this 12 days of war and this ceasefire?
Well, they're very happy there's a ceasefire. There's no question. The people I speak to in Iran, I think by and large that's true of most of the population. Nobody likes to be bombed, regardless of what Israel or the United States thinks. So no, there's happiness that there's a ceasefire, no question. And in terms of whether the nuclear program has survived or not, I think that most people inside Iran think that the Iranian government made plans well ahead of being bombed to, if not move the centrifuges, have other centrifuges somewhere else. Their stockpile of
do they want them to have that? How do they feel about the regime continuing on with this?
Well, I think it's mixed. Some people in Iran definitely feel like it's not the best way to have this conflict with the West over something that they're not even sure they're using. Others feel it's a national pride, and it would be humiliating for them at this point to give it up completely.
But it's coming at the expense of their own economy and their own economic well-being.
A lot of people feel that way, both inside and outside of Iran. Iranians, I mean, both inside and outside. And they're unhappy with the way the Iranian government has managed this, if you want to put it in that way. Even those who believe that Iran should have a nuclear program. One of the things that is important here, though, is there's now a sentiment in Iran, even among some people who are against the regime or are critical of the regime, that perhaps it's time for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. That's always been the danger of bombing Iran and not coming to a diplomatic solution.
Not actually getting rid of it and then not following through.
Even if what President Trump says or believes, wants to believe that the program is completely obliterated, Iran has the knowledge, knows how to build centrifuges, probably has kept some somewhere, not in Fordo, not in Natanz, not in the places that we knew, and can reconstitute it at any time. So,
Stephen, given that, I know you say you're bullish on the ceasefire. How long will you be bullish on the ceasefire if it does, in fact, come to light that the uranium was moved, that there are other centrifuges, and that the Iranians might then make moves to get themselves a nuclear bomb in order to protect this regime?
Yeah, Well, I'm bullish in the immediate sense. The Israelis have their victory and their revenge, and the Iranians clearly no longer want to be bombed, and I have been subject to a demonstration of very significant Israeli and American force. That does not leave the nuclear issue aside. And should the Iranians seek to weaponize whatever's left of their program, you can well imagine that the Israelis would go after it again. They now have surveillance all over the country, so you can expect sort of, Israeli skullduggery to disrupt whatever's there, but will, given the fact that they now have, superiority over Iran's skies, would move. But I think that move against it, but I think that that's down the road. We'll have to see what comes out of negotiations between the United States and Iran, which I expect to happen pretty quickly.